Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bells Must Ring podcast. I am Andrew Rice, the site manager for On the Banks, here with my co-host Arnav Sarkar. A lot of different headlines in all different sports around Rutgers right now. So we're going to be jumping back and forth between several different sports. Starting off with basketball, probably the biggest headline or news. Ace Uh, Dylan Harper was selected by the San Antonio Spurs second overall, while Ace Bailey went to the Utah Jazz fifth overall. You know, with all the problems surrounding the Ace Bailey to the Jazz situation, it appears that it has finally been resolved, and he has made his way over to Utah. So maybe we can finally put all those rumors to rest. And while we're at it, just to mention one more former Rutgers player who signed a deal with an NBA team, Clifford Amore signed a UDFA, I think it was a summer deal, with the Toronto Raptors. Basically,
Yeah,
give him like a summer tryout. I think they was really with the Raptors Summer League affiliate, the Raptors 605, I think it's called.
I think that's what it is. It's a training camp deal with the Raptors. So
Yeah, essentially. So
yeah,
it is
it's,
good to
yeah,
see
it's
some.
basically like a summer league, and he'll get a chance to compete, compete for a roster spot too. So that should be, I guess if he impresses enough, he can earn his way into the roster. I mean, if not, he'll probably be on the Raptors 605, I believe is the name for their G League team.
Definitely. It's just really good to see some former Scarlet Knights making their mark in the NBA, especially in the NBA draft.
Yeah,
Dylan
definitely.
Harper is going to probably the best situation he could have ever wished for if he's looking to develop his game and maybe not be the star immediately, but rather take some time to develop.
Yeah.
He's going to be working with Box, Wembanyama, Castle, an absolute loaded lineup down there in San Antonio.
hmm
And now maybe they'd be looking to trade one of their pieces when Harper develops a little bit more. Who knows?
Yeah. Actually, it just got done writing an article about Harper's situation in San Antonio. Yeah, I mean, like certainly a very good situation to end up in. I mean, playing alongside. I mean, you have two starting, all-star caliber guards. I mean, Stephon Castle is a rookie of the year for the Spurs. And De'Aaron Fox, I mean, he's been a centerpiece for the Sacramento Kings. I mean, he made an all-star team. He's led them to the playoffs. He's very athletic. Both of the two guards, are good scorers. Maybe not necessarily the best shooters, although Castle is definitely heated up from downtown. But I mean, both of them are, guys that could easily start in any NBA lineup. And then putting Harper in but behind them, obviously he's going to get to pick their brain, learn from them, maybe even play alongside one or both of them at times in the lineup if Harper ends up starting at the small forward position or comes off as, off the bench potentially as, backup point guard or shooting guard. But yeah, I mean, I think, with that backcourt being so loaded, I think it's going to give Harper the chance to learn and develop, and before really being thrown into the fire. And then, of course, playing with Wembanyama, I mean, the way Harper can facilitate for, a big man like that who can attack the rim, who can, even space the floor and shoot threes. I mean, it's just going to add so much to his game as well. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think you could ask for a better fit and a better lottery team, I mean, than the Spurs. I mean, they're not really even so much of a lottery team to begin with. It's just, their injury situation, and they're kind of retooling with their young core. So I feel like just kind of like similar to Cooper Flag's situation with the Mavericks, where he's surrounded by, Hall of Fame guys, but kind of with a younger core. Like, this team's gonna, be a playoff contender pretty soon, and Harper's gonna, be a big part of their young core, which is gonna grow into like a perennial contender in a few years.
Well, if you really think about it, the Spurs probably make the playoffs if Wembanyama doesn't get injured so early. But
Right.
since he's so young, he's probably expected to recover with no issue. The thing is, with Harper joining that backcourt, there is no pressure to succeed immediately, unlike his counterpart, Ace Bailey. Ace
Mm,
Bailey is going to a pretty, well,
barren.
pretty
I
talent
guess.
devoid
Yeah.
Utah Jazz team.
Right.
However, if you really boil it down to it, he he kind of got what he wanted, quote unquote, or at least what he said that he wanted, without getting everything that he wanted. Because if you remember his issue with the Sixers, he talked about how he wanted to start immediately,
Yeah.
contribute major minutes. Well, you're on a team where you're going to do that now.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the market that you wanted it to be in, but
Right.
you're on a team where you're going to contribute. He's definitely going to see a lot of playing time early. He's definitely going to be expected to develop a little bit early.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see if he learns on the grill or if he learns or if he doesn't develop properly. But I feel like this is going to be he's going to have to learn, you know, learn on the grill, you know,
Yeah.
learn while he's cooking.
Yeah. I mean, he's terrific scorer. I mean, at that size, a wing player. Obviously, we saw what he did at Rutgers. I mean, hitting tons of tough shots. I mean, yeah, the Jazz are pretty devoid of talent. Although in recent drafts, they have added some young players like Keontae George, Kyle Filipowski, some other guys as well. I mean, they're obviously built around Lauri Markkanen. He's their big star. Walker Kessler. So they then they have Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson at point guard. So it's not completely devoid of talent, but instantly Ace Bailey would probably go in as a top 2 player on the team, alongside like Markkanen. If he's probably going to end up being better than that very quickly. But yeah, I mean, he's going to have a lot of shots. He's going to really get to learn, like you said, on the grill, like right away. And yeah, I mean, he wanted to obviously find himself in a role where he could be a star player who could have a lot of opportunities, a lot of shots. Yeah, it might not be the market he wanted. Obviously, I was kind of hoping he'd fall to Washington or Brooklyn, particularly the Nets, but as a Nets fan. But I mean, for his sake too, I wanted him to go to a place where he wanted to on the East Coast and in a big market. But I mean, I guess for at least he got some of his wishes where he's not gonna have to sit behind Paul George or in Philly where he's going to be the 4th option. So here he's kind of got what he wanted in terms of an opportunity, and that's what the Jazz also were looking for, like a high end talent. And I really like what the Jazz have done with their lineup, in particular, because I mean, or with their draft, because they also paired Ace Bailey with another one of the best, the league's best shot makers, or the college basketball's best shot makers, and Walter Clayton, a huge part of the reason why Florida won their the national championship. I mean, he was just absolute beast, shooting and scoring the basketball. For the Gators. So I mean, I feel pairing him with Ace Bailey, I mean, you're adding 2 dynamic players to the same team. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to see how that combination pans out. I mean, that could be like a dynamic young duo, and I'm excited for summer league, because we're gonna get to see Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey in action for these teams. Should be really cool to see all of that. Obviously, you're gonna get to see a lot of the Nets and the other young NBA prospects in the from the draft, some Cooper Flag in there. But from a Rutgers perspective, like, it'll be really cool to see the 2 of them play with their new teams, where they fit in, all of that kind of stuff, get their first NBA minutes, they even play against each other in one of the games in the Summer League too, when the Utah Jazz take on the San Antonio Spurs, Summer League edition in Vegas. So for anyone who wants to see both of them at the same time, like, we'll get a chance to see them going against each other for the first of many. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. But I guess Jazz, and from the Jazz perspective, pairing up Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida, just a very solid draft by the Jazz, I would say.
I would have liked to see him go to a team with a little bit more though, because yes, the Jazz had a solid draft, but before that they had nothing. At least Washington had a little bit of like a
A
young
little
nucleus forming. At least the Brooklyn Nets had like a little bit of talent on that roster. The Jazz are just kind of completely devoid of it.
Yeah, you're right.
So I would have liked to see him, even though they had a good draft, I would have liked to see him at a team that had something before the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Markkinen would count as something, but they were. I mean, they were pretty bad last year. They were the worst team in the NBA, which is it's kind of hard to
That's what I'm
do.
saying. Like literally
It,
the worst
it's
team in the NBA.
it's hard to do when you have a league like with perennial bottom feeders like the Wizards, the Hornets. Like, I mean, this was a weird like year, but I mean, like yeah. I mean, the race to the bottom. I mean, to finish with like 17 wins and even below some. I mean, the Wizards were like no better. They finished with 18. I mean, the Hornets
I
with
think that
19.
was worse than the Detroit Pistons that when they had that horrendous record.
I
Or
think
that
they
was
were
like almost as bad as the Detroit Pistons
I
when
think
they
they
had
would,
that.
yeah, they were also like something like 17 or something. But we've seen some pretty bad teams in the league. Like I've seen, I don't know, the Nets were like up there, the Sixers have been up there, the Hornets I think one year they won like 7 games. But not to get too like off topic. Yeah, I mean some of these teams are awful, but at least yeah, you're right. I mean the Wizards they do have some level of young talent, or talent I guess. I mean they made some trades that have been interesting. They have acquired Dylan Jones. I mean, they have Chris Middleton, Marcus Smart, if I'm saying this right, Jordan Poole. So I mean, yeah, now they have some talent. They drafted one of the top shooters in the draft too, Trey Johnson, some of the other guys, and then Brooklyn, of course, hauling in 5 draft picks themselves. I mean, obviously Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, who a lot of people think he is going to be in the trade block, but it looks like that's just not going to happen, which might be for the better because he's pretty solid. Nick Claxton, so there's definitely young talent on this team, and a whole lot more of the young talent because they just drafted 5 players. But yeah, no, I mean I would have liked to see him obviously as a Nets fan and here in Brooklyn. That would have been I think what I would have done, especially with the 5 picks. I mean, for the Wizards, like yeah, or that too. Like the Jazz, it's not like ideal, I guess, but at the same time, like it is kind of still pretty much what he wants. In terms of like an opportunity, which is I guess why I would put it ahead of the Sixers because if he was there, he really wouldn't have had a lot of the opportunity. So I mean, the only reason why you want that is because I guess if you wanted to win, but like as a player like Ace Bailey, you're trying to make a name for yourself, and he has the talent on that, and I mean, who knows what the way the Sixers are, and like, I mean, but they have a lot of talent if everybody's healthy. So Ace Bailey would probably slide in somewhere between. You know what I mean? Like he would probably come off the bench, but with the Jazz, he doesn't have to do that. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I think the Jazz are going to be a sneaky, interesting team next year because I mean they do have some young talent, but I mean especially now that you have I mean, an infusion of scoring talent like Walter Clayton and Ace Bailey. I mean, I don't know how good they're going to be because the Western Conference is absolutely like brutal and the Jazz are like horrible. So like it doesn't really bode well, but they'll probably win like at least 10, 15 more games than they did a season ago. I would think is the hopeful expectation for them, I guess.
Yeah, they definitely got to find a way to make a jump in that Western Conference.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like they're like on the bottom tier of like, I mean, you have like the Thunder on one hand, who is like, a tier above everybody, and then you have like all these, like you got the Lakers, which have star power, and the Warriors, and the Wolves, and the Rockets, and like then you kind of have like the in the hunt teams, and then you have like the rebuilding teams, and then you have the Jazz. So it's just like, you know what I mean? They're like
Tier of their own. Tier of their own.
yeah, they're below even like teams like the Pelicans. Yeah, I mean maybe not, but like I mean pretty much everybody else is like at least one tier above them, including Harper Spurs who finished 13th in the West. But I feel like that was also more of an anomaly because of the injuries and everything with Wembanyama. But yeah, I don't know. It was like it was a weird lottery this year because the top 3 teams are all teams that if healthy could have probably made the playoffs, but they kind of lucked into their lottery selections. So Harper benefits from that. The Spurs benefit from that. Obviously, the Jazz were not the beneficiaries of that, but they were able to still get Ace Bailey anyway. So I mean, I guess it all kind of worked out in the end for them. And then in terms of Cliff Amore, I mean, I think that's a great opportunity as well for him to join an NBA team, with the Raptors and everything. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I feel like kind of what I said on Sports Vibe was that, I mean, he's he's pretty good at what he does. Like, he's a really good defensive center. He gets rebounds. He dunks the ball. He could score where he does, but because he's kind of a little bit limited in his game, like, he's gonna have to be really good at what he does, because he doesn't really shoot the three or move out, dribble. Sometimes even his finishing could use work, even at the rim. Like, there's been so many just missed dunks that go off the rim, which just had me shaking my head. But no, that kind of stuff can't happen for sure. But I mean, like, he does what he does really well. So I mean, if he could do that, I think I'm playing a year in Alabama helped as well with some of his development too. But yeah, I mean, if he could do what he does well in terms of getting blocks, getting rebounds, scoring, interior scoring, like, I think he'd have a pretty decent shot at cracking an NBA roster in some format at least.
Yeah, definitely. So I did just want to take a quick pivot over to the world of football. Recently, Rutgers landed Florida defensive lineman Reese Beck. He weighs in at 6'5", 6'5.5", and weighs 250 pounds. Last year, he made 22 total tackles, 16 solos, 4 tackles for a loss, 8 sacks, 12 quarterback hurries, and 1 fumble recovery. That is a lot of stats for one season.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
I mean, you're talking 8 sacks, 12 hurries, 4 TFL, 16 solid tackles. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty solid for a high school season. I mean, you'd probably see that as a college defensive lineman, a good one, would be producing that much. So, I mean, hopefully some of that transfers up to Rutgers. But I mean, a very productive commit for the Scarlet Knights in terms of Reese Beck. And obviously he still has 1 more year. He has great size too. I mean, 6.5 feet tall, 250. Seems like the whole process with him came together very quickly. I think he took a visit, and then he worked out for them, and the whole commitment came together very quickly. They offered him the next day. He committed, so he seemed to be very sold on on Rutgers initially or right away. It's because he committed, very soon after he was offered. So, yeah, I mean, he cited, the Big Ten academics at Rutgers, or Rutgers strong academics. He cited the competition in the Big Ten, Rutgers being a developmental program, which it is. I mean, they're known to be a developmental program. He was an absolute beast in the weight room. He had great stats there, and then obviously on the field as well. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see, him join the class of 2026. I feel like, he, he's going to be very solid for Rutgers, and he's very excited to be a Scarlet Knight as well. And like I said, his size is good. So, I mean, there's really a lot to like about him coming in. So I think he's the first commit of the class listed as a D end. Although the way D Collier, who's a 4-star, is listed at the edge. So I guess I think that's a pretty similar, if not almost the same position. And there's other guys on the defensive line, but I mean, as an edge rusher, I mean, you could see the sacks, you could see the tackles for loss. You could see a lot of things on the edge, even though I think he played interior defensive line in high school. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that will transfer over. So that means,
in all honesty, with him coming in at 250 pounds, with a deadlift, what was it? Squat of nearly 500, a 280-pound clean, 255 bench press. I think, in all honesty, with that kind of strength and that kind of weight, pack on more weight in one season at high school, 1 or 2 years to pack on weight in college. I think he might be moved inside. I know he played interior defensive lineman in high school, is expected to transfer to defensive end. But honestly, like that, I don't think there's much of a point. I mean, he could be a smaller defensive defensive tackle for sure, but with just the amount of like strength he seems to have,
Yeah.
he might be somebody you want to put on the interior anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, like at his size and with his amount of strength, I mean, you want to have your strongest, most physical guys like right there in the middle. I mean, if he adds more weight, like I could definitely see him just continuing to play defensive line. I mean, like because I feel like D end is like it's a little bit less like pure strength and a little bit more speed because you have to kind of get
It's
around, the
quickness.
guys.
It's like
Yeah, you have to
firing
get.
off the
It's
ball.
like kind of like the Bosa brothers, like they're like defensive end. You know what I mean? Yeah, 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 exactly. It's like firing off the ball versus defensive tackle. You think of like Dexter Lawrence. He's a good one from the Giants, but like someone
Well,
right.
even since he's at 250 right now, he's gonna have a chance to bulk up, but most likely he's only
Yeah,
gonna get to like
probably.
290,
Yeah,
maybe pushing 300. But
yeah,
then
not much more than that.
you look
Yeah,
at players like, and I don't mean to put like a all-star comparison on his head, but you look at players like Aaron Donald who are not huge. Like Aaron Donald was not heavy for a defensive lineman. He was one of the best in the league simply because he was freakishly strong. And with numbers like that, he's close to being really freakishly strong. So
true, true.
um,
Yeah,
definitely could see him
on
bump
the inside.
inside, maybe be a little bit of a smaller defensive tackle, but still,
Maybe.
still a DT for us.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah, I mean, I could see him playing on the inside as a DT. Like, I mean, yeah, without that amount of strength, we'll see what happens. I mean, like, it depends on because I know they also have Tavian Branch and Jermaine Polku at the DT position in the same class for 2026. But we could
Well, we
definitely
need
see him.
defensive tackles badly.
Yeah, that's true. They're very
There's going to be a
relatively.
void coming up for defensive tackles, and they might be looking for him to move inside anyway.
That's true. I mean, you can never really have enough depth over there. I mean, that's like a critical position because you're literally matching up against the O line, the interior O line, trying to get pressure. So I mean, you could really, use several of them to say the least. So I mean, we could end up seeing him on the inside, potentially in the outside. But either way, I mean, like I'm really, I'm really excited. I mean, he looks, very like productive as a player. And then his stats, I mean, his measurables look good. His strength is like insane. I mean, like a 495-pound squat, 280-pound clean, and 255
Crazy.
bench press is like, I mean, that's like NFL like type strength probably like for a lot of positions would probably be similar to that on the O or D line. So, yeah, so and on top of that, he's excited to be here and everything, and like he committed right away. He really was convinced about Rutgers. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And then I guess the other commit in the same class, Cannon Marshall, defensive back from um, I think he's from Florida too, right? Or is he? I wrote the article on him, but another exciting prospect. You were mentioning that he's a ball hawk. He has a tendency to go for the interception if available, and I mean, I do like that in the defensive back. Although sometimes that can be a little bit of a risky trait. Like,
Well, he's a gambler. He's definitely a little bit more of a gambler, especially when I was watching his high school tape. Because there was times, like even during his highlights, he jumped the route and got the pick, but there was no one else behind him. So
I see.
it's a little bit like he tends to be a little bit of a gambler. That also might have to do with just his pure speed, because there's a very good chance that with a 4.4 40-yard dash and a 10.6 100-meter dash,
Yeah,
there's a very good chance that even if he misses the interception, gives up a long completion, he can run the guy down anyway.
yeah, you're
I don't
right.
know if that's going to change when he gets to college. Well, actually, it is going to change when he gets to college because he can deal with faster guys. But um, so yeah, definitely going to change when he gets to college. However, he seems to fit a trend that the Rutgers defense has been going after this year, where they're just getting all these like freak athletes that they can
Yeah.
mold into what exactly they're looking for. Because now they have this speedster, and they've been really recruiting a lot of speed recently. So it
Yeah.
seems like they're just getting like these like maybe like blank slates with just pure athletic talent that they can mold into um, mold how they would like them.
Yeah, definitely a lot of speedy guys. Really on both sides of the ball, at receiver, and then at defensive back too. So I mean, like and then like Ben Black comes to mind in terms of a speedster who maybe we'll see him having more playing time this season.
You have a decent amount of playing time last season
He
too.
did, yeah. I remember him in the Nebraska game, just burned by their defense. Unfortunately, dropped the pass, but we'll see. Hopefully more of him. I think he was also from North Carolina. Ken Marshall's from North Carolina, third of the class. But he's actually a 20. Even though he's a 2026 commit, he reclassified to 2025, which has been another recent trend for Rutgers because every year they've had one of those players. Since like I don't even remember how far, like the 2020 season. Gavin Wimsa made that transition, reclassified back. Dario Jabome, and then more recently, defensive back Sage Claudius, Antoine Raymond, who I'm looking forward to seeing a big, probably a big season from him. And then in the same class here, Latrell Noel, who I think we talked about last week, reclassified. So I guess in his case, Marshall was also going to go to a prep school or a military prep school to play football over there, but Rutgers gave him an offer, so he changed his mind. So he's going to forego the prep year, and yeah, I mean, I think like I said, like the speed is very promising. He played basketball and track, and his track was his speed is very impressive, very quick. So yeah, I mean, this year the secondary is like pretty crowded in terms of like having a lot of transfers, but certainly going forward in his career, I mean, he's going to be competing with several other defensive backs for playing time for the next few seasons, and like I mean, to have speed like that, like it's always very good. Especially when you got all these very talented receivers in the Big Ten and stuff like that. Very quick receivers. You got playmakers like I don't know. I don't know how long Jeremiah Smith's going to be at Ohio State, but just to use an example, but to have speed to cover that kind of speed and talent is going to be very important. So that's something that Ken Marshall brings to the team, as well as and the tendency to make interceptions and stuff like that is promising. You always like to have a ball hawk as a defensive back. So yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing him on the team this year, not next year, this year. So this should be pretty promising as well. Just
Well, he probably won't see the field till next
I mean,
year.
yeah, I probably won't see the field this year because the secondary is going to be pretty crowded with Cam Miller, Jet Elad, like all these transfers coming in. But he'll be on the team. He'll be practicing and everything, whatnot. But yeah, who knows? We'll see. But I think it's a good commit just alongside Reese Beck and everything. So I mean, I think both of them are gonna have eventually gonna have an impact on Rutgers and are gonna see the field. Maybe not this year, but in the years to come.
Well, yeah, I mean that is that is the hope that they're going to see.
Be kind of like
That is why
disappointed.
you recruit them. But
Right. Yeah.
that is why you recruit them. But I do agree with what you said, like about how it's nice to have somebody that can go that a little bit of a ball hawk. It is something I think they're gonna have to like dial down when he gets in college, as I mentioned before.
Yeah. It's like a good
But
tendency to
definitely,
have,
we need
but
to get back
yeah,
to a
with
point
caution.
where Shiano is focusing on turnovers again, because I feel like we've gotten a little bit away from that, where they're not necessarily trying to force the turnovers like they were in the past, but definitely good to see them back on this road, and good to see them get a cornerback for first time in a while. Because like
Yeah.
they definitely need to get a quarterback for this season or a cornerback for this upcoming year to be a part of this class.
Right, right,
Um,
right. Yeah.
moving on, moving on to some other, I guess, good news surrounding the Rutgers football world. Kyle Monangai is performing exceptionally well at Bears training camp to the point where, the 1 7 round pick is considered to be right there with the starting rotation. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he might he might be still behind. Uh, Now I'm blanking on who's there.
A DeAndre Swift and
Thank
Rashad
you.
Batson.
He might be still behind DeAndre Swift, but after Swift's poor season and Monangai's excellent training camp so far and willingness to learn, obviously he gets that from our culture. Or obviously you saw that in when he was at Rutgers embracing our culture. But it is good to see he is pushing for playing time. Um, you know, probably will see the field this season, and not in a very limited role. I would say probably as the second or third man up for the Bears. So definitely should see him a decent bit this season. But with all
Yeah,
the good news, there
definitely.
comes some bad news.
Same.
The bad news is that Rutgers has faced about 4 decommitments in the past 2 to 3 weeks. Adam Shaw flipped to Michigan State. Justin Edwards flipped to Miami. Tyrell Simpson flipped to Virginia Tech. And Rayo Kelly flipped to Alabama. Now, starting off with Adam Shaw, um, and him and Edwards, their flip commitment is very similar. As you know, that when you commit to Rutgers, it is very much you shut down your recruitment. You do not take other visits unless you're like a high 4 star like caliber talent. When you commit to Rutgers, you're done. No more recruiting for you. You know,
Right.
everybody's expected to shut him down. Shaw, his family is a Michigan State legacy.
Yeah.
He attended his Michigan State official visit anyway. That
Right.
essentially, when that happens, you essentially rescind your commitment, and he has flipped to Michigan State. Justin Edwards, it's a largely the same story, a little bit, different, but largely the same story. Edwards was actually very high on Rutgers. Like he was, by all accounts, he was very high on Rutgers, very much a Rutgers person. However, and his family was largely on board too, but I think it was largely his coaching staff that was like, you got to take a trip to Miami. You got to take that Miami trip. You got to check out Miami's campus.
Yeah.
He decides to take the
That.
trip.
Yeah.
As you know, with Rutgers, you do not take other official visits when you are committed. That's it. He
Is
took
that
the
like?
trip anyway.
Mm,
He gets flipped to Miami.
yeah.
That one, I feel like, was against the best wishes of Edwards. However, Shiano used like a girlfriend example. A couple years ago when he was talking about recruitment, he talks about you don't date 2 girls at the same time. You pick one girl and you stick with them. And he's been using that philosophy with recruiting. While this does suck in this instance because you're losing 2 linebackers.
Right.
Adam Shaw, you know, was projected to be a decent linebacker. We don't really know because he played quarterback in high school, but he was
Right.
projected to be a decent linebacker. But Justin Edwards was somebody that I personally was very excited
Me
about.
too. I was very excited about. He was like a very high 3-star prospect, almost a 4-star, and had a lot of
Stats up the wazoo for his junior season
yeah,
too. Like he had like piles and piles of stats.
yeah,
But
yeah,
can't date two different women. Ends up
yeah, yeah.
causing them to decommit.
It's unfortunate. Is that like a firm and hard rule about like Rutgers, like where you're really not supposed to do that, or is it just like kind of like a
I
word of
think it's
advice?
like if you're like a 4-star, if you're like a solid 4-star and above, they're gonna make an exception for you.
Right.
But I think in large part, it's like the majority rule, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it should be. Like once you make a decision to commit, like that should mean you
You
do
should
it,
be committed. No, I
right?
kind of have to agree with them there.
Just based on like the principle of the idea. Like now, again, in this day and age, like decommits happen all the time, and like we see that, but it's just I don't know. I just feel like it should mean something. Like I mean, it's one thing to take an official visit, like oh that's fine and good, but like once you say that I'm committed, like that should be the end of it. But at the
You're
same
committed,
time,
yeah.
yeah, like that should be it. Like but in this day and age, obviously that never. I mean, not never. I mean, oftentimes commitments hold up, but sometimes they just don't. But like yeah, I mean, I would like to think that once you're committed. Otherwise, why use that word for it? If you're still keeping your recruitment open or other options open, but I don't know. I mean, like it's a new day and age, so those two, yeah. I mean, they're kind of similar but different because like. I mean, Adam Shaw, I kind of understand because I think both of his parents were at MSU, and both of them, I think, were played at MSU, and so there's definitely like some home cooking ties
His
or
dad was a 5th-round draft pick for the Spartans in the
yeah,
NFL draft.
exactly. So I mean, there's I mean, obviously, so Shaw himself is from New Jersey, so there's a different kind of home tie there. But given the fact that both his parents played there, I mean, I'm sure that definitely weighed on him, and I can understand that. I mean, Edwards, like that one, like I'm a little bit more disappointed with, but at the same time, like
I'm also a
it
little bit
is
more confused about too.
it
It's
is
like if
Miami.
you really liked the spot and you knew what was going to happen, why did you? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. Like he really liked it here by all records. By all records, he really liked it here.
Yeah,
But it was like these like outside influences because he's a Florida kid. Keep that in mind.
true.
He's
So
a
that
Florida
also
kid. It
again,
was all these outside instances, but at a certain point, you got to say, "This is what I want. This is what I like. This is where I'm going."
right?
You
Yeah.
know.
Well, I mean, that probably had something to do with it, like the being part of being from Florida, playing in his home state.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and I honestly like yeah, I mean, plus the weather's nice. Like the team's not bad by any stretch. I mean, they just obviously with Cam Ward they had a boost, so lots going well for the U. Although Rutgers did beat them last time we played them, which was pretty nice, honestly, even though it was a bowl game. But got to see some of the players do the canes down, the U flip. But yeah, exactly that. But anyway, no, it's all I don't know. I mean, it's all good, I guess. But I don't really blame him for making that decision. But it really would have been nice for with the talent and everything. Like it really would have been nice for to have Edwards around. Yeah, I mean, plus NIL is huge at Miami, as I'm sure you know. That also might have maybe been another part of the factor. We've seen like much higher, profile transfers like Carson Beck going from Georgia to exactly Miami for the NIL. So that that for yeah, I mean, that probably also might have been a factor as well as just being from Florida, the weather. I mean, there's like a lot of different things. So the caliber of the team, like a lot of different things that could go on there. But I guess yeah. I mean, in terms of the other two, I mean Tyrell Simpson, flipping to Virginia Tech. I mean, he's from I believe North Carolina, so not too far away from that part. And I think he had some family matters that wanted him to stay closer to home, which again is completely like understandable. And then Rael Kelly, switching over to Alabama, he took an official visit over there. So I mean, again, Alabama, like one of the best blue blood and just elite programs in the country. So that one also
It's hard to
understand.
stop a player from taking an official visit to Alabama.
Yeah, who wouldn't? You know what I mean? It's
And
Alabama.
with Tyrell Simpson, like there was something going on behind the scenes with his family that basically forced him to stay closer to home. Not you can't be upset with somebody looking after their family. That's
Yeah,
the
no,
number one responsibility.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Makes
Kelly,
sense.
on the other hand, I feel like that just serves as a benchmark of where the program is at, though. And it's like, it's something we mentioned before with us um, taking some Georgia players, some players that Georgia was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
We're, back
We're
when
competing.
Shiano first started, we were really competing with Buffalo and with
But like some match.
Temple for recruits. Now we're fighting with Alabama, Georgia, guys like that for recruits. It really just serves to show a benchmark of where the program is at now.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think we got someone from Georgia that was the state of Georgia that was like really.
The
I think
offensive lineman.
yeah, Chris, like was it Chris Jones or something Jones? I forget. Or
No, it's not Chris Jones.
no, wait, that's a Chiefs DL. But no, someone. Oh yeah. I don't know exactly who it was, but you know who I'm talking about, right? Like, I mean, he.
I know who you're talking about.
I think he was interested in both Georgia and Alabama. Were like in this top four or something like that, or Georgia and some other SEC school. It might have been Tennessee, and then like Rutgers was in the Final Four, and he chose Rutgers over those SEC schools. So I mean, yeah, Rutgers is
Jared Smith.
Yeah, Jared Smith. That's right. I don't know why I said Chris Jones, but yeah, Jared Smith. I mean, his top four was like I think Georgia, Tennessee, Rutgers, and another Power Five school. Might have been. I think it was like Auburn or something like that. So,
Auburn was in there. Yeah.
So that's three like SEC.
Georgia, Georgia Tech, Auburn.
Oh, Georgia Tech. Oh, okay. But yeah, so two SEC schools, one ACC school, and Rutgers, and Georgia Tech. I mean, like gave Georgia quite a heck of a hard time in their rivalry game last year.
Well, they're a team on the come up too.
Yeah, they're very good. So I mean, the fact that he chose,
that.
Yeah, that was a very fun one. I was kind of hoping they would pull the upset, but it didn't happen. But I mean, in terms of Rutgers, though, like I mean, yeah, being able to compete with programs like that and win some of these recruiting battles, like, I mean, it shows where the program is now at this point, and the fact that they're able to compete and get some of these guys. I mean, Rutgers, I guess, probably has different things to offer than some of these programs. Maybe a little bit of a better education, more playing time, than some of these high-end guys would get, rather than just being another guy on the roster, maybe having a real chance to be one of the best. So there's things like that go on that, if you maybe look at it the other way, if you're like a lower, a little bit like a lesser talented recruit, maybe Rutgers is the place where you're just a number. But in terms of these big SEC guys, at SEC schools, they have different things to offer, but sometimes it's hard to turn down the allure of playing in the SEC, playing for a school like Alabama, playing for a school like Ohio State, to use a Big Ten example. So I mean, I really don't blame Kelly for making that decision, going down there. And plus, he has no like New Jersey ties or anything. He's from Cincinnati, Ohio. So Rutgers and Alabama probably just as kind of random as what I mean. They probably neither of them really had like any home, like any connection to him like personally or anything. So it's very understandable why he would choose to go to Alabama over Rutgers. So I think that was their second Big Ten flip of the day that day. Actually, they also had flipped Illinois running back Javari Bennett, who was a 4-star. So not the first time that happened.
It's tough to compete with Alabama. It's like they're where they're at for a reason. They're one of the best programs of all time.
They're the Crimson Tide. So yeah. So it looks like they had a slow start to recruiting for the 2026 class, but they're they're definitely gonna speed up on that. So anyway, I mean, like, it is what it is. It feels like all four of these like are kind of different, but obviously there's none of them that really look bad, I would say. Like, I mean, like, Alabama's Alabama for a reason. The Family Matters thing, like, it's completely understandable. Same thing with the Michigan State thing. I don't think that you could really like argue with that either. The Miami one's like the one that is like a little bit fishy, I guess, considering, like you said, you really like Rutgers and everything. But
It's the one
too.
that stands out the most.
Yeah, that's one that stands out. But again, he's from Florida, and once you take a visit, like sometimes that sways, and you never know what could be going on with NIL. There's a whole lot of things that could be going on with that. But yeah, anyway, I guess besides all of that, yeah, I mean, I think that that covers all the football news for this week, in terms of commitments, decommitments. Kamanunga, who I think is going to end up, probably as the second string back for the Bears behind Swift, and I'm really excited to see that for sure. I think he's going to be a difference maker in the NFL. Have a good season and everything. Following Isaiah Pacheco's footsteps and whatnot, but
he's definitely going to have the opportunity to make his mark.
yeah.
So, taking a quick jump over to the women's side of things, we have some news from the world of women's lacrosse. The Lady Knights have added Coach Pikiell's daughter, head basketball coach Steve Pikiell's daughter, to the women's lacrosse team, Liv Pikiell. Last season, she was part of an undefeated UNC team. While with the Tar Heels for her last season, she scored 5 goals, recorded 5 points, 5 ground balls, and caused 4 turnovers in their favor. I don't know if the world of women's lacrosse has any form of like title or anything like that, but I do know that the UNC Tar Heels went 22-0, perfect record. I know you were the one that really covered this. Did you have any insight about what was going on down at UNC and what women's lacrosse is getting with Liv Pikiell?
Yeah, well, obviously, like, a Rutgers connection right there. Daughter of men's basketball coach Steve Pikiell. So that's really very interesting. But as a player, she was very productive during her time with the Tar Heels. 4 years. She won 2 national championships. The first one, I don't think she was really like integral part of the team. I think that was her redshirt year, but after that she played another 3 years. She was an All-American in high school, and then she scored her first career hat trick in 2024, finishing the season with 5 goals, 5 points, 5 ground balls, and 4 turnovers. And then this season, or 4 caused turnovers, this season she had a goal, ground ball, and forced a turnover. Played 15 games, so certainly someone who could contribute. She's a defenseman. Although she also does, contribute on the offensive side of it. So, another defenseman to add.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, another defenseman to add to the program. They certainly have quite a bit of defensemen on the team, and some pretty good ones. Although some of them are graduating and everything, so some replacements. But Rutgers women's lacrosse obviously having a little bit of a down season. So I mean, adding a player with veteran experience and who's won a championship with the team, has playoff experience and veteran experience, I think will certainly go a long way in helping the program.
Yeah, especially since trying to get everything back on track after having somewhat of a down year. But she was not the only addition made to the women's lacrosse team. They also added goaltender. Oh, look at that last name, Simone Koryszewski.
The way you say it.
Koryszewski.
I think it's like Koryszewski. Like no.
Koryszewski.
Yeah, I've seen like names like that, but yeah.
So I've got to get better pronouncing names.
Yeah. Seems like they yeah. I mean that's a big addition as well. On as a goaltender. She had 193 saves in total. She actually, I think, played her freshman and her senior years. Didn't really play too much in the middle, but had a percentage of .413 and led the team with 103 saves this past season for the Columbia Lions of the Ivy League. So yeah, I mean, another talented player. And this one's big because Rutgers, their All-American goaltender from last season, Lexi Coldiron, is graduating or departing the program, and she was like really, really solid. I think she was one of the top goaltenders in all of the Big Ten. I think she had a save percentage of like .505, so she was definitely a very solid player that Rutgers is looking to replace. So adding Koryszewski into the mix is going to be big because she's going to come in as the goaltender with the most experience. So yeah, I mean, I think both of them are going to add veteran experience to the program, and both of them were All-Americans in high school. They both had lengthy college careers. They contributed. So Rutgers kind of had like not too great of a year. They were I believe like 2-8 or 2-6 in the Big Ten, and 8-10 overall. Although they did have a couple big wins over Stony Brook, which was ranked 16th, and then number 21 Ohio State. They had a lot of losses after that. Got knocked out first round of the Big Ten tournament. So could use whatever improvements they could get, and obviously I think they needed a new starting goaltender for sure. So I mean, I think both of these additions, I think, will help the program for 2026. 2026 going into the spring.
Well, they definitely have to find a way to move the needle forward a little bit because, you said 2-8 in the Big Ten, 2-6.
2-6, yeah.
That's brutal.
Yeah, it's not great.
Moving on to another prominent women's program, women's basketball has made several new coaching changes to its current roster. Just to name a few, they promoted Janine Wieselewski to the new offensive coordinator. That was an internal hire. She's been an assistant coach for 3 seasons with Rutgers, but now she has received the bump up to offensive coordinator after working with the shooting guards and being the director of offensive analytics. For the defensive coordinator, they hired Shannon LeBeauf, who was an assistant coach at UC Riverside for the past 4 years. Helped lead the Highlanders to the Big West Championship and the WNIT in 2024, and worked with Northern Colorado for 1 season where they reached the semifinals of the Big Sky Conference tournament. And he coached the Conference Player of the Year, Alicia Davis. So he's going to be a little bit of a new face that we're going to see on the defensive side of things for the Lady Knights. There are a couple other changes. They got James Spinelli, who is going to be sort of like the new analytics guy for the women's basketball team. His official title is the director of scouting and analytics. Before that, he worked with film study at I believe it was Notre Dame. Yeah, he worked with different types of film study at Notre Dame, and Rutgers is also getting a new director. And new director of recruiting operations in Danny Edwards, who is an internal hire for the Knights. Somebody who's been around the campus before, let's say. And the last major, or I guess one of the remaining major shifts in the coaching staff is that Neneka Enekapale is getting promoted to the role of chief of staff after 2 seasons as an assistant coach. Chief of staff is more of like an administrative role, tasked with the various running operations of the team, along with working with head coach Conquise Washington with the NIL and revenue sharing issues and stuff like that. So another ally for the women's basketball program in that front. and interim basketball director. Interim director of basketball operations Alejandro Ramirez has been promoted to his role full time. So it's another promotion from within. However, there's one hire that I am particularly excited about, and that is the hire of assistant head coach um, Shannon LeBeauf, who worked at UCLA as an assistant head coach over there, helped the Bruins qualify for 9 NCAA tournaments in her 14 years coaching with them. She also played a huge role in the recruiting trail, helping the Bruins secure 2 number 1 overall recruiting classes during her 14 years and a top 25 recruiting class every year down in Los Angeles. Before her time with the Bruins, she spent 5 years at Duke as an assistant head coach and helped them win 2 ACC titles along with qualifying for the NCAA tournament every year at Duke. She's widely regarded as one of, if not the best assistant coach in the nation when it comes to women's basketball. I'm excited. You know, it sounds like they really knocked a home run out of the park with that, with their hire of LeBeauf. And I really hope I'm not butchering that name, but that's what it sounds like every time that I hear somebody else read it off. So,
Yeah.
But it really sounds like they got a little bit of a ringer with this coach.
Yeah, no, seems like she has quite the reputation. Also the name, yeah, like you said, but yeah, 14 years at UCLA with one of the top assistant coaches in the country. I mean, the team's been very successful. I think this year they made a pretty deep run into the tournament as well, and then having a 14, 25 top 25 recruiting classes, 2 number 1 classes, 1 Elite 8, 1 Final 4, 9 tournament appearances, and 321 wins. And then having leading Duke to a couple ACC championships and a national championship. So I mean, she's definitely kind of been around the block and definitely helped some pretty storied women's programs, and both on the court and also with recruiting. And then some of these other, the Sean LeBeauf as defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator from within Janine Wasilewski. And then some of the other the other hires towards the recruiting side of things. So it seems like they're definitely making good work of all the different positions, retooling the staff and adding a lot of talent to the recruiting world as well. So I mean, I think all of that's going to help this team. Obviously, they're bringing in a lot of different players through the transfer portal, some of which are very high heralded as well. So I mean, I think they've kind of done the work with the staff to make sure that they receive the attention that are going to help the team play better on the court, because obviously Rutgers women's basketball has kind of been struggling last few seasons.
But they are one of the most storied programs in America. I mean, you look at the women's basketball banners up at the rack, and it's like they're littered up there.
I see Vivian Stringer and like all the great coaches, the Rita Grants, like in program history and whatnot.
One interesting thing to note, though, when it comes to C. Vivian Stringer, is that LeBeauf, when she was at Iowa, played 1 season under C. Vivian Stringer when she was at Iowa.
Ah, yeah, that's interesting. I did see that as well. So yeah, wait before even she coached at UCLA and Duke. Yeah, she played for. You're right. Yeah, she played for Stringer at Iowa. So I mean, yeah, no, Rutgers. Yeah, they the women's program certainly has a bit of a storied history as well. So I mean, hopefully a lot of these moves help them kind of get back towards back towards where they were in the past. I think like they've made the moves on the coaching staff, on the recruiting staff to really help the program out on both sides of things. And like all of these different positions, I mean, you think of all of this with football, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, recruiting, like having, in the modern day, you have scouting and analytics, you have recruiting, you have so many different things, like, but I mean, even in like women's basketball, men's basketball, all these different sports, like you have, it just like shows how much it goes into it. You don't really think you need all of that. Although every team has one of those, typically you don't really think of like basketball so much as a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, full of recruiting, you know what I mean? Like so much that goes on with this, like, but, that's what it takes, I mean, you need to have expertise at each individual facet of the game. You need to have an offensive strategy, ball movement. You have to have a solid defensive strategy. You have to have, in this world, you have to have a great recruiting strategy, like a GM type of person. You have to be up to date with the analytics. That's a huge part of the game. I mean, we've seen that change so much over the past like 10 years in the world of basketball. So it seems like they made all the right adjustments. And then some in-house promotions as well with Aneka Polly and with Wasilewski as well. So I mean, I feel like, yeah, I mean, obviously the big one being Shannon LeBeauf, like that. She sounds like one of the top assistant coaches in the nation. She's regarded as the best assistant coach in the nation, and it'll be exciting to see what kind of impact that has on the program in terms of recruiting going into the future, because obviously they've had in recent seasons, even they've had like Kia McMillan as a 4-star, but she didn't really end up seeing a 5-star, as she didn't end up seeing the court as a lot. There's a lot of internal issues, but if Rutgers could develop a class with more 4 and 5 stars going forward, I mean, that could really change the trajectory of this program.
Yeah, and who knows later down the line if stuff doesn't work out with Washington, you have a proven commodity on staff.
Potentially, exactly.
Not saying that we're rooting on anyone's downfall. We never do that.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think Koki Washington overall is a very solid coach and everything too, and just the way she talks at press conferences. But the on the court results, have some things to be desired. But we'll see how that goes over the years. But I guess in the case where if things were not to work out, they have someone who could potentially step in. Is like what you're trying to say, I guess.
We have to take into account that she took a pretty bereft program, and even without their 5 stars, she, at the very least, was a major part in dragging that team to the conference tournament.
I know, yeah.
Into the WNIT. So
yeah, and they made a pretty good run in that tournament too. They made it all the way to the Elite 8 of their tournament, or whatever it's called, the Grade 8, which was pretty, so they made a pretty deep run in that tournament as well.
Right. So she took a team pretty devoid of talent, at least made something out of it.
Right.
But that pretty much does it for everything that we were looking to cover today. A lot of jumping all over the place. Basketball, football, women's sports. We're all over the place on this podcast. But I just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in with us. And as always, remember that the bells must ring.